I'm here with actor Sean Ormond, who has. Thank you for coming down here
Thank you
to
for having me.
wonderful Lower Manhattan.
It's been a long time in the running.
Yeah,
We're
it has
finally
been.
here.
We finally are here. I feel like we've been trying to get this.
2020.
Yeah, 2 years later. Has it been 2 years? Not that long, right?
No,
At
it
least
feels
a
like
year.
2 years.
It feels like
2
two.
years. Time flies.
Yeah, when you're
Like 6
when you're not
months,
being
yeah.
interviewed, right? So let's talk a little bit about when you first decided that you wanted to become an actor. How old were you?
Oh boy.
I mean, obviously, it's not like you're 70
Yeah.
now.
You know, I was kind of I wasn't the best student in high school, and I kind of like fell into like all these musicals. And was doing all the plays, and there was like 3 guys that my town like cycled through. I happened to be the lucky, one of those lucky guys, and then I went to school for it, and I had this like dream school of mine that I grew up going down there every year for vacation. Went there, University of Miami, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do like theater or acting or any of that. I wasn't sure, but I did. Ended up going there. I was like, I could change my mind later, but I fell in love with it there.
Yeah.
And I know not really having that plan isn't too conventional, but I'm glad I did it. It worked out. I loved my school.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of like when I decided, I'll give this whole thing a shot here,
What was your original intention before acting? Did you have like a job that you had kind of always wanted to be when you were a younger kid?
When I was
Doctor,
really young, like for
astronaut?
like career day, I was always a meteorologist. I loved tornadoes. I don't know why, just fun fact. Loved tornadoes. But I think if I didn't go into acting, I think maybe finance.
Yeah, there you go.
180. And here we are.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Here we are.
Being an actor is probably one of the least financially stable things you can do.
Absolutely. I made a mistake. I made a big mistake.
No, oh well. No, you didn't, because it's your passion and that's what you want to do. There are no mistakes.
No mistakes.
So what did you do to pursue the career professionally once you made that decision to really do it full time? You are from around here, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Connecticut actually. So what I did is I kind of like started with the regional theater thing. So like my freshman year, I like auditioned for like some shows and like got lucky to get some job offers. Did like the musical theater thing, and that's kind of like where it started. And then I kind of fell into film way later. Unexpectedly?
Did you have to discover your voice in terms of singing, or did you already have that natural ability?
So I sang in high school, like for the musicals. I don't know how seriously I took it, but I took like voice lessons ish like my last year or so of high school, and then took it seriously at UN, and it's just I think it's always like a musical family, so I kind of became maybe a bit easier, but there's still so much to learn. And yeah.
Did you like the immediacy of having that audience give a reaction? It's obviously different when
For
you're
theater,
working
you
in
mean?
film and TV. Yeah.
Yes, I was just talking about this, and it's something that I miss right now, which is a large reason why I like to be based out of New York. Is I miss that. I miss. There's something so amazing. It's like both things. You take film, you take theater. What do? You get cast. Yeah, you're lucky. And then you learn your lines, you rehearse them, if you're lucky, usually for film, no rehearsal, and then you try to do your best, and for film, it's done.
Right.
That's it, cut, done.
Right.
Then you wait a year or 2 years to see if you blew it. You know what I mean?
Or you don't even know what take they're going to use, or
absolutely.
how they're going to plot it together, and you're like, oh, wait, it doesn't
Absolutely.
read the way I was doing it, and it's crazy.
But in theater, it's no matter what.
Yeah.
Usually, but
I was gonna say when there's not, then
so there is like this like respect, for actors in the sacred space of a theater, which is just so amazing to have that hard work be like appreciated by a group of people.
Right.
Even if it's not your best thing, there's something really great about that. It gives you a moment of like, all right, that was worth it.
Yeah.
That was worth it. So I think it's a great point.
When did you start focusing on film and television, and there are so many opportunities now for an actor in New York to pursue that?
So I was a junior in college. And like I out of curiosity was like researching like backstage.com or like one of those actors websites, and I found like this audition for something that seemed like kind of like maybe something I could do. I auditioned and ended up getting it. Thought nothing of it at the time.
Right.
It was just fun little short, and I'd seen this guy on campus who he was making this film outside of school, and so I did it, and like we had a good time, and happened to like do like really well, and kept getting like random awards and stuff, and like we got this we got an award from the Television Academy.
Wow.
And yeah, it was cool. And at that time, like I thought nothing of it. My plan was to go to New York, go do theater, whatever. But then from there, I got some like agent offers, and then like flew out to LA, and then got a feature. And
In LA, you got the feature?
yeah. But it all kind of came from this one little short film that meant nothing to me at the time.
Right,
We were just, forget my language, we were just like dicking around almost.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool. It was like really amazing experience that I just happened to stumble into. And that's kind of where I started falling into film. And the next thing I know, I spent the last over two and a half years in Los Angeles, you know.
Was it a different beast out there than what you were used to in New
I
York?
think so, yeah. I think so. I think like the heart is kind of all the same for the people that are out there and pursuing their dreams and hustling, whatever. But culturally, I think it's definitely a very different vibe, you know, from the theater community to what I've experienced so far, you know, in the Hollywood community.
Which genre are you the most comfortable in when it comes to a project, like drama, comedy?
You know, it's a hard question, and it's one of the things that I hope to find.
Well, because as an actor, you want to be comfortable in all of them, but some people have a natural, innate ability for comedy or drama.
And what's so cool, like, and this is one of the things I definitely find to be a bit different on the West Coast, at least, you know, with my friends. The theater people, I think we kind of learn to keep our entire worlds like open to like be able to do whatever you can, get work, you know. But kind of in this like LA world, this Hollywood world, I started finding that people really lean into their brands, into like their identity is entirely almost one thing.
Right.
You know, and it's in theater we call it like maybe a pigeonhole.
Right.
Which is kind of has a bad connotation sometimes. But
or typecasting, something like that, yeah.
But on the West Coast, it's really like people want to achieve that almost, is to have their thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's really cool. So like I've got a bunch of comedy friends. They do stand-up, they do sketches, they produce their own stuff, and they do all this, you know, great thing, and they are comedy guys.
Yeah.
And they book some comedy features. They just got a show, and you know, that's kind of how it works. But in theater, it's kind of like, just be good at everything. Be good at everything, you know, and get work. So I think that's a big difference.
Now, are you going to stay here based on the East Coast, or are you thinking of going out there full time, or taking where the opportunity brings you?
I'm lucky that my reps they're bi-coastal. So I hope to be based more out here, starting now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I got to be flexible, and we'll
absolutely.
see. You know, if work comes up out there in LA, then
You could just go
out there.
Airbnb it for a couple months.
Absolutely. Go out there to LA. Otherwise, I just love New York City so much.
Yeah.
You know,
It's got a different energy to it.
Yeah, I grew up on the East Coast, and
you're used
all
to
my
it.
all my people are here too.
Yeah.
You know?
And the actors' audience is here, so I mean.
And the actors' audience is here.
I mean, why go out there?
Yeah.
Entertainment Tonight
The
and
actors'
Access
audience is
Hollywood.
here.
You got to stay. Stay in the basements of poor New York Plaza.
So we'll see. And at least from my experience, so much of it has become so self-tape heavy.
Yeah.
That I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to chalk up some money to go back for callbacks or whatever, like the really big stuff.
Yeah.
I could maybe make it work. You know,
What was your first professional gig?
Oh, geez. I think I did like Happy Days of this show called like Captain Louie and Wedding Singer and Spring Awakening. I was a freshman in college. Just my first thing was called the Roxy Regional Theater in Tennessee. It was epic. It was epic for me. It was like so cool. I was like, man, this is great. I was like the youngest guy and got to live in the house with all these like, you know, older people who I thought were like the legends.
Yeah.
They're legends. Yeah. And so that was like my first gig.
And what about your first professional TV or film gig?
The first one, I guess technically was a short because, you know, I was paid for it. But other than that, I think the first was this thriller called 50K. It was the first thing I booked out in Los Angeles, and that's a wacky thriller about these like, it's very, I forget what the movie's called, but it's very similar to this. It's like a bunch of young people who know that this guy has $50,000.
Yeah.
And they kind of come up with this scheme, which it just, of course,
It's a bad
unravels and it just goes terribly. And I play kind of like the comedic relief of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing, and that was fun. Yeah, $50K.
And now I always make a joke with the New York actors that if you don't do a Law and Order in a horror film, you're not a real actor.
I
So
know.
have you done them?
I've done the horror big time. I've done
Have
horror,
you?
I think, 3 times now. Three of my films might be horror, if I'm counting like $50K.
Always a victim?
I die all the time.
Yeah. What was the weirdest way or the hardest to shoot?
Without giving spoilers and
Yeah.
putting it to like a movie because it's not out yet, I think I get hit in the head with this hammer. And I think that's the best story because like I get hit in the head with this hammer, it gets stuck in my head, and then I like slowly kind of die because like I'm still like kind of like
Yeah, you're still alive.
coming to it, and but that entire day on set I just had this hammer hanging off my head. I'm just kind of like holding it here, or someone's holding it. You know,
Fun time,
yeah,
right?
because it just connects to my head, and it just so that was a fun time.
Hammer time.
Been shot a couple times, stabbed. You know,
Yeah.
I think maybe I just have a type where I'm supposed to die.
That's
you know,
very
that
tragic
might be
and
my
sad.
type.
That's your thing. Your typecast is the murder victim.
My typecast is to just die. You know,
At the end of this interview, that's what's going to
It's a
happen.
die,
Stay
yeah.
tuned, everyone. If somebody creeps behind him, they come out of the wall. That's like the green opens up.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So now you're here in New York.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to go out for film, theater, television.
Yeah, it's good.
And you have a huge 2 years coming up. You have like 8 to 10 projects coming out. What is that feeling like for you to have so many projects that you've already shot that you just have to sit back and be like, damn,
Yeah.
these are going to come out one right after the other?
You know, it's interesting because this might be pivoting a little bit off topic, but
This is all you, man. You do.
there's something really cool about the work that I've done. Of course, I think every actor can relate to like wishing that they were in a different place than they currently are, no matter where, you know, you are. But like, I just had this like talk back with Jessica Lange, and it's kind of like in my head right now, so I kind of want to feel like it's an opportunity to talk about it, where she says like back in the day, the golden age, like when she started, it was like you were a star or you're not doing anything.
Right.
More or less, you know, you are the next big picture, or you are nothing. What's so amazing about acting today is that there are so many different avenues of this thing that we do.
Absolutely.
There's so much content. There's so much stuff.
So many places to put it.
Yeah. There's so many things, and because of that, there has been this new space of like this middle ground.
Yeah.
Which exists, and some of it pops off, and that could be an amazing thing. You know, some of these indie films, which has been largely my market in the last 2 years, has been working in indie films, and it's cool because like one of those things can pop off huge, or they could all be duds, or they could all be big. You know, it's like sometimes you don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really don't know. You could have like the last film I did, sick cast, but you never know.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, how does it feel these next 2 years, these films are just gonna start coming out?
Right.
It feels like, wow, you have no idea. So that's a long-winded way of explaining.
It makes
like, it's
a
like
ton
really
of sense.
like interesting.
It kind of spun off a question now that
But it
I
also
have.
means so much more.
Right.
For the one or two, hopefully. If there's wood, there's no wood.
Yes. The tables.
Pops off in a way that's like special for everyone involved, you know?
Now that kind of led me to another thought of you started at A, working, and now you have 10 movies, which obviously you didn't know you were going to have in the span of 2 years.
Not at all.
Do you feel that you have improved from point A to point B? And how will that feel for you to watch that come to life on screen where they may not be released in the order which you filmed them, which is
It's a great question.
that would probably will not happen, I would assume.
I think, in a way, I'm just as, I don't know if I'm much better as an actor in general, as flexible, but I would say understanding the medium of film
Yeah.
and adjusting appropriately, having come from the theater background,
Right.
and understanding really tone and story and all that, I've grown tremendously, I think, in the last couple of years, and I could see like some of the first things I did, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, like, oh no, the bane of my existence. This is immortalized forever, you know. But then I see some like the more recent stuff here and there, and I'm like, I learned a lot.
Well, I feel like that comes
learned a lot.
with the territory, even for A-list actors who may have filmed something that blew up and it came out first,
Yeah.
and then they filmed something that wasn't as critically acclaimed. Then it's like, oh, all of a sudden you're a box office dud.
Right,
well, it's
right.
like, well, wait a minute. If
Yeah.
they were released in the other order, maybe that wouldn't have been the case.
Very interesting. That's a
Because
great
how
point.
do you know that it would have been
That's a great point.
as popular if people went and saw a dud, or like would they go see the second movie? So it's such a
so
strange
interesting.
thing.
And
Yeah.
that's what we don't really experience as much in the theater world.
Right.
You know, again, it kind of all comes down to like the clapping too. It's like
Yeah.
you feel it out. You feel it out. Are you blowing it or are you not? You feel it out in the audition room. Like you just feel it. But in film, you have no idea what it's going to look like.
Right, and I feel that's something unique to actors because
Yeah,
if you're an
yeah,
accountant,
yeah.
you're going to want to keep moving up if you
Exactly.
can. Or even a basketball player, you're going to keep improving. They're not going to say, oh, well, he was crappy in 84
Yeah.
on this team, but now obviously you're going to improve, but you don't know that based on releases,
Absolutely.
how it's going to go.
You have no idea.
And also, one of the other things that's tough as an actor is your look and your marketability. And it's
Absolutely.
actually a career where you could be made or broke by a preconceived notion about somebody as you walk in the door, which is a hard thing. It's like, well, wait, did I not get the role because of this or because of that? Was it my choice?
Never know.
Or was it an apparent? And like, that's gotta, like, how do you deal with that aspect of the business?
Sure. You know, it's interesting. I'm lucky. I look at it. I'm like, I'm lucky, but I'm also unlucky. So, and everyone probably feels the same exact way. I think I've got a pretty flexible look.
That was literally what
Yeah.
spun that question for me, was like seeing your pictures that
Right.
we had, shot back and forth for the
Totally.
website. And then when you came in with glasses, it's like a totally
Different vibe,
different vibe.
And
And a believable vibe in both.
Well, thank you. It's interesting because, I've been with my agents now for nearly 3 years because I signed with them in college, and we still like the range of roles I go out for is still, it's still like boom,
Right.
like a big range, which poses a challenge sometimes, which can be frustrating when I get a role which like innately is just so not me.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
But in another way, it gives me opportunity to be believably brought in by casting directors who've seen me do multiple different things, and they're still gonna kind of call me in. So it's a catch-22.
It is.
It really is.
Oh, like if you base it on your pictures,
Yeah.
you would be the macho stud guy of the movie, and then
Yeah.
in person you're rocking the look with the glasses now and the hair. Like you
Right.
could be like the Clark Kentish, but also be a psycho underneath. You have no idea. You know what I mean?
Yes,
You,
I totally
your
know
look
what you mean.
leads itself to a lot of layers. Which
Which
is
it's
great.
like the last film I just did, I played this like miserable, nearing gothic, dark, emo-ish teenager.
Yeah.
They put my hair down, they messed it up, I wore a beanie for most of the movie, and that is so far from me.
Yeah.
But you never know. You put your hair down, and
Right.
all of a sudden
Well,
people
you-
look at you a certain way.
Right, and that kind of
Put a
feeds your
hat on me, and then
performance.
And it's interesting, and it's like that for me is really so far from it, but like I got it. Like,
Have
I
you
got
had
the role.
Have you had a role that was so challenging for you? At the end of the day, it was hard to break out of the character and not let it affect you, because that's another big issue with an actor. Is
Yeah.
like you want to be true to the character that you're playing,
Right.
but you also don't want it to be in a detriment to your own mental health and your own life that you have to lead offset.
Totally. And I think any actor can like relate to how passionate they are. It's so hard to get jobs, for most of us. So like when we do, you really care about it. You want it to be your best, and ultimately the fact of the matter is, unless you're doing like the coolest golden jobs of all time, a lot of challenges come with doing, for example, let's take indie films for example. Sometimes these budgets that might be under $1 million, like they come with a lot of challenges usually. You hope not. And I think it's very easy to let that just like drag on you at the end of the day, when like the fact of the matter is, you might get there ready to go. You are sharp, you worked out, you are ready,
Yeah.
you feel good at 2 p.m. and then for your big scene, and then you don't get to it till 1 a.m. at night.
Right.
And you have one take to do it.
Right.
And you are exhausted. And you are so tired.
And you've just been sitting there for-
essentially
yeah.
just like in a coma for 12 hours.
Right.
And then it's go.
Right.
That to me is the hardest thing to try to like balance just emotionally. Just like for mental health, to like accept the challenges and
Right.
how to overcome them and how to do that, because it's something which no one can escape, no actor can.
And I think
Just the way it is.
I think people get reputations based on, oh, well, he stayed in character the whole time. He was such an asshole to work with. And,
Yeah.
well, maybe he had to wait however many hours and he needed to keep that going, or
Yeah.
he wasn't going to give the best performance that he could feel like he or she was
It's
giving.
hard.
Yeah.
And like it's so easy for me to be like, man, I got so unlucky in that film. Like there was some like feature, like there's a feature or two that I finished where I'm like, I don't think I had a lucky day. Where it's like when I'm ready to go,
Right.
boom, it's always at like that awful time. But then like we're all doing it that way. We're all tired.
Absolutely.
We're all
Right.
dead.
Because
we're
the
all
person
brain
behind
dead,
the camera,
yeah.
the one directing
So
you, the one
it's just
in your
so it's
scene
just the
with
way it
you.
is. And
Yeah.
in a way, it's exciting and got to be on your toes at all times. But another way, it can be definitely a drag on like
Right.
your motivation and like how you're feeling about everything.
Of your roles to date,
Yeah.
which has been the most challenging to you and which has been the easiest? And I don't mean easiest like you phoned it in.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean easiest like, wow, this is so much like me that it's an actual joy to do it. I don't have to work as hard as I might.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the easiest, by coincidence, has been some of the short films I've done, like early on, because so this guy who like I did like my first like little silly short film with. Just by the nature we know each other,
Right.
we have such a good communication, you naturally create this bond in a way where we speak the same language. And because of that, the roles are almost like written kind of for
Each other, yeah.
for the director, the writer director, and me, and you could tell I'm just it's exciting, and like I know like I got this, I got this.
When
I know
it's
exactly
a
what
true
he wants.
collaboration,
Yeah, and
is when
that's
it's probably
so
the most
amazing.
rewarding.
And that is just so amazing, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes short films could have this like stigma, but I see some of my friends out there who are hustling filmmakers, and some of their short films, man, like they're amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing, and like in a way, it's so even sometimes more powerful to see a group of people with a shoestring budget,
Right.
and people that they don't like on their crew, that they're just
Right.
making work and they don't have that communication, but they know one thing, they're so passionate about this that they're still doing it. And then when it comes out and then it's so good,
Yeah.
when that happens, I think that's just like the most amazing thing.
And another challenge is if you have a good relationship when you're working together, but then the film comes out and you see that, they didn't, like the vision for the film kind of changed while they were editing it.
Of course.
It's got to be
course.
challenging. I had
It
a
is.
friend who the takes that they took and just the way they framed the film after it was shot
Yeah.
really didn't do any help to him because of his performance was great, but things
Yeah.
didn't make sense. It was like, wait, why were you so angry here but not here? And like
yeah.
certain ways things were shot, like reaction shots were too long. Like we're talking like 15-minute reaction shot where you could tell they filmed it with
Absolutely.
2 different cameras, and they just decided that was the way they were going to go, and it was just like
It's so scary.
it is like
And
you're really putting your trust into somebody. It's like you put your heart and soul into the role, and then it's like they can pick it apart in post. And
Oh, absolutely. And I think, it's a really challenging thing on that topic of like, again, let's talk about specifically some of these indie films with like under $1 million to it, and everyone's hustling, everyone's working hard. But it could be a really scary thing to like, you work so hard on, let's say, a scene,
Yeah.
right? And what's naturally happening in this one scene, let's say we're in a scene together here, something's happening which you're giving me stuff that's making me do this and do that, which doesn't happen in other takes.
right.
But it works with this take. And if we were in theater, they're watching it play out. We see the motion of that scene. We're seeing the direction, that through line based on what's sparking between us.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you do 4 takes and it's all entirely different, and they pull this from that, this from that, this from that, sometimes it could just it's not the actor's intention.
Yeah.
And it's a scary thing to put that trust in somebody, that they see something that's more workable and that's better than what you brought that day.
Right.
And that's just the nature of the beast. And that's a scary thing, because the fact of the matter is sometimes you walk away from seeing something and you're like, no, I think what we had that if this cut back and
Right.
forth, you never know what happens.
It's gonna lose something. Yeah.
And that's I think the most difficult and challenging and scary thing, you know.
Is it challenging for you to jump between genres because you have to play a certain way for theater versus film, and then versus television, and also going back and forth, even if it's an episodic show on television versus a film where things are shot a certain way? It's like so many things go into being an actor. It's not just standing there looking pretty and doing your lines.
I mean, so much. I think the biggest lesson is tone. And learning about tone. And I don't think you could really ever fully just get it until you just start doing it, you know, and feeling it out. And, you know, if you do this, you read the script and you feel it out, and sometimes, yes, this is a horror film, which come from the stereotypes of this, but it's also not like a, let's say, Lifetime horror thriller, which has a certain tone, versus a campy horror versus a horror with, you know, a little cheeky, and we have some humor to it.
Right.
Tone is just everything, and tone is what really like defines the mood and the color of the movie, the vibe that we feel, you know, that makes it special and unique. And it's interesting. It's really interesting.
Have you gone in, and I assume I know the answer to this, but I like to ask anyway.
Yeah.
Have you gone in for a part that you were almost 100% positive that you were going to get, and they went a different way, and also one that you shit the bed and you're like, there's no way I'll ever get a call back for this or even get the part, and then you actually booked it?
Yeah, both have happened. Both have totally happened.
And not literally shit the bed.
Yeah,
so I don't want to hear those stories.
No, absolutely. There were two major instances out in LA where I like this role. I was like, this is it. I read the description. I was like, that was me. That was exactly who I was. That was exactly the guy I was in high school. And like again, it's like we were talking about earlier. It's sometimes you just pick up the script and you're like, I got it.
Right.
You don't have to tell me the tone. Like I got it.
Right.
You know, I think I do. And then you get right down. You're in the third, fourth callback, and I'm sure you know what testing is.
Yeah.
Like, so I tested for the show, and it's like, wow. Like I walked away, and I was like, oh my gosh, my life's about to change right now.
Yeah.
That was just the role. Like that was totally like my thing.
Right.
And it felt great. And then got an email saying like, you know, you get pinned, which means like you're pinned for it. And then like days later, you find out that you know, someone who's very talented, but very, very famous, you know, gets put in there. And that's just the nature. And
that's the thing. How do you deal with that mental aspect of that, of, you know, you killed it.
Yeah.
You know, you may have been better for the part, but then they go with this A-list person, or it could be a friend of a friend who was like, oh, I need this role desperately, and like it's who you know, and like
it's a tricky thing. At first, naturally, it's the most like upsetting thing. I think it's almost, I always say it's almost better to just like do one audition, do a good job, and never get called back, and don't invest emotionally your heart in it for like 3-4 times, and like it bleeds into about a month of time, and it's like
right, because it's not like you go in today and like it's over tomorrow.
Like you don't want to talk to your friends about it because like, and it's like you stay in your apartment and it's like, wow, this is huge. And then you get like pinned for something, and you test for something, and it's like, wow, this is happening like right now. But the fact of the matter is, it happens to a lot of actors, and it's a really challenging thing. And I could say, man, it's the worst feeling for an actor. But then I could also say that I also understand why it happens, because even let's say an actor who maybe someone gets pinned for something and gets a role, and then another actor gets it, and they feel like, man, I did that better. Like I was better. That happens, but I think also there is so much of it is business, and that's the way it is. And I understand that if I'm casting something and I'm a producer and I have somebody have, let's say, 10-15 million followers on Instagram, and they're a very kind of like niche thing, which like fits the show too, the vibe, like they translate.
Right.
A lot of people are going to tune in and watch that.
Right.
I get that, you know. So unless it's a major difference, it's like it makes sense,
right,
business wise, and you know you want things to work.
And unfortunately, that's the problem, is that acting is also a business, like filmmaking. Television is a business on top of it.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time that you had been put in, and obviously you don't have to mention the project, in a situation that you were thought was going to be one way, and then something happened where it totally changed course, and maybe somebody wasn't as professional as they could have been, or maybe hyped something up more than it actually was, and
That is Hollywood.
Yeah.
In my head, that is
Yeah.
just what it is.
Yeah.
That is, again, this is kind of like the indie film sector of actors' audience, but that is indie films. You know.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, because you never know. You kind of just have to learn that you show up, you do your best, and you hope that it works out, and sometimes it does, and a lot of times, usually, it doesn't.
Right.
You know.
Have you ever been put in a scary situation where you were thinking you were going in for something and it's like, wait, this is kind of sketch. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with a challenge like that?
I think I'm
Like,
better.
well, I killed the guy and no one knows it yet. Yeah. Don't confess here.
I think I'm better at dealing with it now, but there are moments which get really sketch or really sometimes not safe, or something that is contractually just incorrect, like bleeding us way over time, and
Yeah.
now you get compensated for that, but there's a vibe, there's a line to cross, and like I've definitely had situations where it's been crossed.
Well, I feel like also there's a predatory nature to part of it, because
Yeah.
you're Joe Smith from the Midwest and you want to get a credit and you'll
Absolutely.
do anything, and then you realize, oh wait, what am I doing here? Like, this is
Absolutely.
Or somebody presents a project that ends up not being what they, I think hopefully it's changing a little bit, and that kind of behavior is being
Totally
phased out.
and in a different way, or a different kind of situation. There was one film that I did early on that I won't mention, but I was cast shockingly in it, but then I speak to the kind of the head person doing it, and I'm like, this isn't me, but the way I read for it, the way I did the callback for it, was totally not really what's written. But I was like, I can't do that, so let me just
Right.
I don't have time this week.
Yeah.
Like, just being honest, like, let me just do my version of this, even though it's kind of far away from what I know the intention was. And then you get cast, and you're like, okay, so that means they probably liked what it was. But then I was really pushed to go in this direction that was intended in the script. So then, to me, as a young actor, I was wondering, like, there had to be something better for this,
Right,
there had to be
right.
something better. This is not my thing, and like I never once showed you that. The work I did on this was not that.
Right.
So how are you to know, to put your money on me, that I'd be able to then go this totally different direction? And I had to.
And it's one thing to change a script or tweak something, but
Oh,
when you go
yeah.
from you came in to read as
Exactly.
Sean for this, and you presented this, and then you go in and you've been cast, and now it's like, wait, is this even the same movie?
Exactly, and that's what happened to me in a film, and that's just such a challenging thing, and I'll probably never get over it.
Yeah.
I will. I'll be an old man looking back, and I won't
Right.
care. I'll laugh. I'll be like, man,
Polishing your Oscars.
Yeah,
And then
and I'm like, whatever. But
when your E! True Hollywood Story comes out, right?
but it's totally like that has been the most challenging thing for me as a young actor, because again, like I said, it's so hard to get jobs. Well, at least for me, I audition, and you hope you get good feedback, but ultimately you can't expect to get every audition you do, and it's really challenging to make a life doing it. So then when you do, you want to give it your all, and you want to be best, because you know that it could lead to something else. I had one silly short film start everything for me. That it wasn't silly.
Right.
It was the most legit thing. So you never know.
Right.
That's what's so crazy too. It's like, again, back to like the comparison to theater, my experience in theater at least is you can go do a regional gig and go do Hello Dolly in Missouri. It could be the best production ever. But chances are
You're not
your
gonna
big
land
break
on-
is not coming.
Right, you're not
from
going
that.
to
Chances are,
get
yeah.
Broadway from that unless-
Probably not.
Right.
You don't know who's working on it. Maybe like the director is a guest director. You never know.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my experience is it kind of just dies there.
Mm-hmm.
But with film, sky is the limit.
Right.
Which is exciting and scary. For example, the film we were just talking about, which I had a bad experience with. It's scary that way because I'm like, oh my goodness, like I don't want anyone seeing this, and some people do, and I'm like, that is just like the farthest thing
Right.
from a representation of my work,
Right.
which kills me, because even me as an actor who understands it, I go to a movie, I sit there, I go to film festivals, I see great films, and if an actor maybe fallen short, you assume it's just the actor.
Right.
You assume that take is their best take. You assume that what you're seeing is the best version of that human, you know, being an actor. And it's never the case. You never know. I mean, there could be people who kind of blew it on set, and you're like, oh, how are they going to look? But for some reason, with their look and the way that they edit it, they are killer. You know? And then for you, you feel like, what? You know? So it's really exciting, but it is also very, very scary. And I think it just takes a lifetime to get over it.
Have you ever decided, or not decided, but have you ever gotten to a point where you're like, I can't do this for the rest of my life, things aren't happening, and what has kept you in the game?
Oh, dude, I mean, I still think about it every day. I still think about, 10 years down the line, no matter what successes I find and lucky to have, do I want this crazy roller coaster life? Like, because I definitely would like to have, you know, like a family. So those thoughts, I think, I don't know many actors that truly don't have that thought in the back of their head.
Of course.
Percolating there forever, just filling up the back of their brain saying, hey, maybe one day you might want some consistency.
Right.
You know, I think a really interesting thing that I found doing some films, like I would see, oh my gosh, this person's in the, I've got scenes with this person.
Yeah.
Almost said some names accidentally, but.
That's good. We would have.
Where I'm like, wow, like, this is amazing. Gosh. And then I'm on set with them, like go in their trailer or something, have like a little like rehearsal, and like I'm talking, and then we talk all day, and we go through the stuff. I'm like, man, this person is miserable.
Right.
This person who I would die to have their life.
Right.
Is miserable, and I found that a lot.
Well, because money doesn't buy you happiness; it just buys you things.
You find a lot, so sometimes it's kind of daunting as a young actor to like be like, here's my hero, you know?
Yeah.
And then.
On the flip side, not the flip side, but have you been cast in a project, you've gotten a co-star that you have either died to work for, admired their work, and were so excited to be working on a project with them, then you get there and they're just not so much the miserable because they hate what they're doing, but they're just an asshole. And has that ruined it for you? Because that's a very tricky thing you have to do as an actor.
Of course, you know,
it's like a don't meet your heroes kind of thing.
I think I have a good sense of humor, so sometimes like the ones that were like, "Whoa, asshole! Whoa, chill!" Like, you've been in this, I've been this. You know, we haven't been in this nearly as long as you have, and we all sense the vibe. It's just like that's just the way the situation is. Like,
right.
It's not going to help you, you know, putting somebody down, which I've ran into a couple times. So I find it funny. But on the flip side of things, I can't tell you how many times I've also worked with somebody that I'm like, oh my goodness, this person is the bomb.
Right.
And
that's the great part of it, yeah.
I just did a film with, I love the show Veep.
Yeah.
And there's this actor, Dan Bacadal, in Veep. He's a series regular in Veep. And I just did this film with him. And I worked with him every day down in Florida. Coolest dude you ever meet. Most down-to-earth, most talented, amazing, and just seemingly unscathed by the challenges of the entertainment industry. And he's just one of those situations where you run into and you're like, man, this guy's like a hero of mine. This guy's awesome. And he is even more awesome.
Right,
you know? And it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
So some of those moments are amazing. And I think he's a great example.
Now, this is not to put down any of the massive amount of projects you have coming out. Is there one of the 8 to 10 projects that are coming out that you feel is your best work, is really not going to launch you somewhere, but that you're so proud of that you just can't wait for it to come out and see the reaction?
It's a good question. Because by coincidence, some of the bigger things that I've got faith will be seen by a lot of people just might not be the roles that I'll be like, oh man, that's my thing. But like, no, I sure do great because I was in it. Like the film I did with Dan and them, I've got faith that that film is special.
Right.
And while the role isn't necessarily, again, like my thing, you know, this is the one where I played like this like emo-ish kind of, you know, young teenager. I think that film has got potential to really be something special. The cast in it was great, and that's something that I'm like, keep an eye out for that film. It's called Putty Sticks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's special.
I think too with actors, as you're going through a project, you may not have had the confidence in yourself to think you could pull a certain character off. Then you do this film and you see that it's picks up steam, or you're part of the film and you're singled out is like, wow, maybe I really do have what it takes to do this part that I didn't think I necessarily had. And like, it could give you the confidence to do
things down the line,
things down the line of a similar ilk.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not talking about more horror films where you can get however many times you got killed.
You know what else is interesting too? Like on this topic, it's I did this. Trying to find the right words in case certain people see this. So I did this Christian film, right? Previously, before doing this Christian film, I would be like, "Oh, should I be doing this thing? Oh," and I did it. And in a way, in a weird, very interesting way, it's been one of the films that I'm like, I'm so glad I did that. By how I look at it, because to like this niche audience, the people that go see this.
Christian films are huge.
Yes, and they make money.
Or faith-based. It doesn't have.
It
doesn't have to be specifically about it, but like feel-good movies that are
huge.
Like break.
Because there are only so many a year. You know what I mean? And I got lucky to do one with vice director Rich Cristiano, who's been around forever. He's like one of like the pioneers of the Christian film market. And going into it, I go into it kind of like nervously. I'm like, okay, but like happy about the money on this and happy to go do this. Like I'll say yes to anything right now, and seeing it, even if it's like maybe not my dream market, there's something about seeing the audience. In a way, it's kind of connects to like a theater thing. Who's there, and this is all they want to see, and this is like what they love. Right. And then they love the film. They are so moved, and it means so much to them, this movie, that I still like get DMs and like I just like witnessing the people so affected by your work as an actor. In a way, it's like that's all I could ever ask for.
And how do you meet?
It's really interesting.
How do you meet that challenge of being a younger actor?
Yeah.
You want to be involved in social media, obviously, because it's a huge marketing tool for yourself, and to have other people see, like, okay, he played this part, but that's really not him. Here's his real life, where you keep it authentic to who you are. Yeah. But also to the point where, okay, maybe I got 20 DMs. That doesn't sound like a lot. Yeah. But then what if your 20 turns to 40? And you're like, well, I answered these 20, and now I got to answer everybody else. When does it start to snowball for you, where you have to take a step back and be like, put a blanket thank you on your Instagram instead of DMing people?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because I'm pretty sure our interview came about through DM, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember. It was 13 years ago. So.
It was. We were both in daycare together. They changed our diapers. I'm like, I should interview you after we get a diaper change.
Yeah. Well, so far, mine has come only in waves. Mine has not been a general thing. Mine has been only in waves of. So the Christian film I did is still playing in theaters, and one hits like a couple like big ones. By how they do it, they do their distribution in a really interesting way, where they don't put it on like 1,000 screens for a weekend, because it'll be squashed in 2 weeks probably. Which is how it is. So they do it in a really interesting way, where they slowly hit like 5 theaters here this weekend, 5 theaters that weekend, and they just go. And so it's a really interesting way of putting it out there. So like, but when there's a bunch in like 1 week, and like a lot of people are going, because some of these have like associations with like these mega churches, for example, just to give you an example of like this Christian film, and you get like 1,000 people going to this thing, and they're like all about it. They're hungry for the next movie to take their family to. You know, that is when I'll like I'll like wake up to like my Instagram and be like, oh, I bet you that film played for a mega church today, or something. Right. So, but because a lot of those messages, again, it's just like a different thing. It's not just like, hey, we saw you in this movie, really cool. to them, again, it's really bizarre. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's really interesting to me because I'm not from that world, you know?
Right. And it's
how much it means to them. So like their messages tend to be far more this rather than someone else who might have seen another film of mine and be like, yo, good job. you know?
Yeah.
So it's
like you're
it's a different
affecting
vibe.
somebody in
I
a
get stuff
profound
like,
way.
You changed my life in this movie with what your character did, and I'm like, man, that is like awesome. Like in a way,
Yeah.
it's a really interesting conversation because like in a way, it's like part of me is like ooh, but then part of me is like, wait, no, that's awesome.
It's awesome, and
for
then
that person. You know what I mean?
for that, like your effect, it's almost like your job for you was I'm not saying that you weren't serious about it.
No,
and
I was,
you got a paycheck from it, and you put your all into it, and then
Yeah.
you kind of feel like, okay, I did my job, I put the best I could do, and now my part's done. And then you inspire somebody, and it's like, oh shit, my part's not done. Like, this is really taking off in a direction I never even imagined when I filmed it.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
with that is obviously going to come scrutiny into other film roles you may have done, or
Yeah.
how do you navigate that with like, okay, here I am, this is me in this film, this is a representation of who I am, but I'm also this. I feel like in this political climate and the way, and I don't mean just politics, I mean
Yeah.
the way the world is right now, it's like, well, you're an actor, shut up, you can't have an opinion about something, or
Right.
or say you have an opinion about something and it differs from the people who are watching this faith-based film.
Yeah.
It's like you almost have to be careful kind of what you say, but then still be authentic to yourself.
I think it's an amazing point. I think you hit it right on the head.
Yeah.
And you know, at the end of the day, I'll figure it out and find out because again, only 2 or 3 of mine have been released. So we'll see if
Are there more Christian-based films that are coming in these
that's
next
the
8
only
projects?
thing. No, that's the only.
That
one
was
I
the
had.
only one.
That's the only one I had.
And that might open doors to you for other
It might.
Christian-based films or people who put them on.
It might. And to be honest, I think I would gladly, you know,
That's awesome.
I would gladly take it because I've had such a good experience with this one that I never would have imagined that I would have had. In a way that, you know, it's such a tough industry, and especially with film versus theater where you have these claps and these people talking. Also just like theater goers, they're so great. Like they are down to talk and communicate with
Right.
you, and it's just a different
I think it
culture.
opens a dialogue
It
too,
does,
because you used to go to the
Yes.
movies to like kind of escape your problems and
Yeah.
feel good about yourself, or you know, make something that is uplifting.
Sure.
Because today you turn on the television, it's I hate you because of this, and you hate me because I'm the other side of
Yeah.
it, and it's just like it becomes too much where you can just sit and escape and like actually be affected by somebody's performance and a film as a
Exactly.
whole.
I mean, totally. I think that's exactly it, and I think I found it to be such a breath of fresh air to do, to get that experience and that, you know, that response to a film that I never would have thought of before, and like in a way that honestly that feels really good. And so often I'll do films that might end up being a dud, and you have all these situations with it, and you're like, no one's gonna remember that.
Right.
No one's gonna. That's not changing their life.
Right.
I'm not saying that I only want to do movies that change their life, but I've been very fortunate that I had an opportunity where I did something that honestly might really change someone's point of view on something when they walk out of a theater, and that to me is just like,
It's a
Whoa.
huge response. And did you go
Mind-blowing.
Did you go into that part thinking that might be an opportunity for you to do it, or
No.
did it just come organically as?
it came organically. I went into it, to be honest, skeptical and very like, let's just do this job, let's just do this, and you know, take this paycheck and go home. But then it became such an amazing experience, and I had some scenes with some people that I looked up to, and I've been watching forever. You know, Loretta Swit is in it, Fred Grandy, Clinton Howard. I had a lot of scenes with Clint. He played my boss, and it's just cool. And I think like as it's happening, I started realizing, wow, this is different. This is something unique. I'm not going to experience this vibe everywhere else. Because it was a very warm set. It was just like one of those great experiences where there weren't many hiccups.
Right.
And pretty much everyone's just like happy and it's just working out. And this director is so great that he's been doing it for so long.
Right.
He has his thing. He has his brand. and he knows the market, and he puts out a film like every 3 years, makes good money on it. He's returned profits every time, which is amazing. It's amazing, for a filmmaker. That it just kind of like they have their crew, the same DP, the same stuff, and it just works, and like it was a really great experience.
Is this a feel-good family movie that is pushing a narrative of a certain religious opportunity, or like church? If you go to church, you're going to be a great person, or is it more of a feel-good and can encapsulate a wide audience?
I think that this one would mean different things to who's seeing it. So to a family who, let's say, has lived for the most part a life of, going to church, they lived within a certain culture where that is their passion. They have a passion for it, and they've got a great relationship with whatever they believe in. And to them, it is a call to action. To them, I keep hearing that, where it's like a call to action, because it basically revolves around my character and a few other young characters who just like don't care about anything. We're just normal young kids, and we're like seniors in high school or something, about to graduate, and we have this one teacher that kind of empowers us to consider exploring more and to develop a relationship with something because it really matters. And my family isn't really in that world that I think the niche market really is.
Right.
But they saw it, they went to theaters, and they respond to it in a different way, in a way of like, wow, you don't see many wholesome movies like that anymore.
Right.
And to my parents, they're a bit old and maybe old school. Like to them, that was really special in a different way. They weren't walking out being like, I'm going to church every Sunday now. They weren't walking out, with 3 Bible purchases on the way home.
Right.
They weren't doing that, but they were just saying, wow, you don't see a wholesome kind of movie like that too often anymore. So to them, it was worth them seeing in a different way.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but I would say it's definitely intended. Its niche market is faith-based Christian film, and I think the people who are among that culture, or at least familiar with it, get the most out of the film because of just the story itself, I think.
How do you balance because of this film,
Sure.
you mentioned you were getting DMs and
Sure.
you've changed people's lives. How do you balance the severity of that with I also do have to stay Sean and like not be so bogged down? It's flattering and I'm so happy that my performance affected you, and I'm so glad that I made a connection with you. But at the same time, if you have to present yourself in a certain way to fit that narrative, how do you deal with that?
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I ran into a couple hiccups with that, actually, again, that I never would have expected, where some of these people who went to see it see my role,
right,
and they assume that I am amongst this, that I'm that guy,
right.
in a weird way, like that.
Right.
I share the same view as this character,
right,
which isn't necessarily the case. And so some situations have come up where like I've been asked to speak at certain panels or speak to certain groups, and I would feel so guilty if I did that, because like I would be playing a version against
you would
Sean
still be
that would not be who I am,
right? Yeah, you'd be
and
acting as a character and not necessarily.
I'm like, part of me is like, oh, I would love to go speak to, let's say, this youth group, right, and empower them. What am I going to say? I was reading lines,
right.
So it's really interesting, and I've had a couple, I guess, fans from that who consistently, come at me with ideas and stuff that like I don't want to be rude, because I really do appreciate,
of course,
their excitement and how they responded to this film I did, But maybe 2 years later, after filming this thing, I'm like, how do I balance? I'm still figuring out.
Right.
How do I balance? Do I respond? Say, hey, by the way, I don't believe in anything what you're saying right now, or or do I say, hey, thank you so much, it's so kind. Unfortunately, I'm busy. It's like
Right. It's like
how do I
balancing
balance
that,
it?
or
It's
you
challenging.
you have a role coming up that
Yeah.
you filmed since that. You're riding the
And it's the
wave of
complete
this
opposite,
film,
yeah.
right? Or that
Ugh.
that emo kid, and you're like, ooh, this character itself is not going to land the same way my character in this film did. Are people who are now fans of mine because of this going to watch that and be like, oh, well, maybe that's what he's about, and I don't want to support him anymore?
I think
it's so
so.
crazy.
I do.
Yeah,
I actually,
it's crazy.
I imagine that all the time, and I think that is going to be the case. And I think that is unfortunate because I've loved the response to this film more than anything else I've ever had, probably. Which,
Right.
again, it's been the most like interesting conversation of my young life. I think of this response, and there's a possibility that there might be a sequel to that film. Or another one that comes from it,
Right.
within the same market, and I would happily take it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're exactly right. Where they might go see something else, and they'd be like, "Oh, how dare he?"
Right. Well, I think
It's
I think too.
fascinating.
It's fascinating with musicians and with actors and with people that are in the public spotlight.
Yeah.
Like if you have a plumber who has a really great reputation, he's the best plumber in the world, but he supports Donald Trump, and you hate Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Are you going to not hire him because of that and go with a subpar plumber? Like that's not going to be used against him per
Yeah.
se. Where an actor, somebody who's putting a character out there, but also has to put themselves out there. It's almost like you're putting not a split personality, but like you
Totally.
really got to weave in and out of some gray areas.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like I said, like if I'm lucky to get more opportunities in that faith-based market,
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that I would happily take it, depending on the role and depending on because I just had such a good experience doing it.
Right.
The
And-
best experience I've had, maybe. And like, even though it's my job is to act, right?
Right.
And regardless of the text, I could do a play or I could do something about being a murderer. That's not what I am. I'm not a murderer, but
Right.
I want to do the best version that I
Zac
can.
Efron's not Ted Bundy.
Right, exactly.
Or Jeffrey Dahmer, whoever he just
Yeah,
played.
yeah.
Like you're
And
playing
so it's
the
the same
character.
thing.
Right.
In a way, it's the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a great response from it. And you see these people fill in these seats and like so moved.
Right.
I have never had that experience before, so I'm like, yeah, I'll take it.
Right.
It's great. And so since my job is to act, I would happily take them, and I wouldn't even care if I was branded as that because I feel so fortunate to have been so overwhelmed with a great response to some of these people in such like local towns who do a lot of it.
Right.
That is just like so amazing to me, and it's something that I would never take for granted, and something I hope I feel again.
Right.
I really do. I hope I feel that my work, learning my lines,
Right.
practicing it, making choices as an actor,
Right. Well, you're opening
mean as much again.
You're opening up their eyes to a certain way of life or a certain
Yes.
point where they're also doing the same to you, because maybe you go on location to film this,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh shit, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like,
Yeah.
what are people like here? Like, what are things done like here? And you're like,
Right.
this is not like New York at all. And it's like,
Exactly.
you could also wrap your head around the way people think in certain areas about certain things based on where they live in.
Totally.
Yeah, that's an
Totally.
interesting thing to have to wrap your head around too.
It really is, but the most important thing is it was a great experience
Yeah.
from just a working standpoint. They
Mm-hmm.
had their stuff together, and the director's amazing, Rich Cristiano.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his niche, he's got his brand, and he does it, and he knows what his audiences want, and they come back, and he makes money, and he does it right. And there's actually an increasing demand for faith-based films.
There is.
There really is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a market up. Sony, I think, just opened up their faith-based.
My boy Devon Franklin, I think, right? Is
Yeah.
he the? I know he started at Sony, and he
Yeah.
did break through, and he's got a bunch of faith-based films coming out
And
this
they
year.
just opened up an entire, department of
Yeah,
faith-based films, and I think it's cool. I think it's really great, regardless of what you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Just keeping what I believe in aside. It's great because those people like movies too.
yeah. Everyone
Yeah.
likes
And
movies.
they're
Everybody
awesome.
wants to be affected.
And my experience is that, I've loved. I had a couple opportunities where I was able to go to a smaller town, like outside of LA,
Mm-hmm.
and go see it and then sign autographs and like do a talk back. And it's just amazing to have a chance to connect with groups of people and communities that you otherwise would have never passed through.
Absolutely.
I would have never, without this film, I would have never been connected to some of these towns outside of LA, or some of these towns in Kentucky or Tennessee. And that's crazy to me. That's so cool.
Right.
That's
and for
so
us
cool.
being in New York and California, for somebody like Brad Pitt or Jennifer Aniston or any of those people to come here to promote a film is like, obviously they're going to do that. But you're playing that role in those areas.
Yeah.
It's like you're the Brad Pitt because of you're the movie star coming to their town. And so that's to them, and to yourself, you get a whole different experience than you thought when you were setting out with the project.
And also I'll say this, they are very good audiences. They're just good audiences, you know? They're not going to rip you apart as an actor. They're going to enjoy a movie. And I think the more mainstream a film is, and the more, you have harsher audiences just naturally. And
absolutely. Like, look at all the scrutiny that goes into like an X-Men or a Star Wars. Like, oh, it fell short because of this. It's like
challenging, you know?
You have a lot of people now that well, look at how Game of Thrones ended, and people were, oh, it needs to be reshot. It's like somebody put their blood, sweat, and tears. Like, you had 10 years, and I was glad those actors came out and be like, this was our job for 10 years. This to us is a serious thing. Like, to you may not have been satisfied with the ending, but all of us are the people who put 10 years worth of work in, and like, we're proud of what we
100%.
did. You know, yes, we're making the television for the audience, but we also did it for ourselves and like the way it concluded.
Absolutely. And that's exactly right. I feel exactly that. It's like, as an actor, I get so scared because the one great thing about theater too is, more or less, it's never going to be immortalized. You know, not to be dramatic.
Well, no, unless you're in Lincoln Center watching a tape performance, which people don't have access to.
But with film, you could find most stuff whenever you want, and you want, if people, go check out your stuff in the future, like if people start seeing some of my films in 5, 10, 20 years or something, I want it to be a good representation of my work.
Right.
And oftentimes, in my experience, it hasn't been the easiest route of like knowing for sure, or having that confidence and pride in your work.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing. So yeah, I think it's huge. That is huge for an actor. Just like, we care.
Yeah.
So sometimes it just really is nice to have a forgiving audience.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you. If so many things coming out, and it's just such an interesting thing because you don't know how they're going to be received. You have a 2020 slate that's full, a 2021 slate.
Different, pretty much. They're all so different.
It's got to be an exciting time for you, but also scary in a way.
It is absolutely scary. It's definitely stressful and definitely very scary because, again, you never know.
Right.
How it felt that day, like we said.
Well, because you're releasing 8 to 10 films, and that's like, oh man, he's working consistently for 2 years. You film those in a certain, like, you could have been doing nothing from now until the last film comes out in 2021.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying
no,
that specifically.
You are absolutely right.
And to jinx or anything, but that it's the case of, wow, he was in 10 things, his momentum.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh wait, he hasn't been in anything. Like,
exactly.
Or, oh, well, he's got 10 movies. Now he's doing this little rinky-dink theater or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's so interesting.
It really is. And you find that, especially, again, as we talked about at the beginning of this interview, of like,
the beginning of this interview, which started on Thursday, it's now Sunday.
I'm not up here. I'm not down here. But I am one of the people who are lucky to exist in this middle ground area, which, like I said, like what Jessica Lange was talking about, which is, this middle ground exists now, where you could be a working actor and you can make it happen, and because there's so much right here.
Right.
Now momentum really exists for the stuff up here.
Yeah.
The stuff up here, you book one, your agents are changing, you're getting offers for other stuff, you're in the room for everything, and that's not me right now. But it adds some excitement, I guess, but also adds nerves.
Yeah.
To this middle ground, and who knows? One thing could pop off. There are numerous films a year that.
It's funny too.
Could have been nothing, but they pop off, and then it has the same exact effect as if you were the lead of some show.
Well, right, like to you listening to Jessica Lange talk about her career and getting her feedback and advice. somebody may not give a crap about Jessica Lange in the Midwest, or was seeing this faith-based movie, and to them, you're the Jessica Lange. Isn't it? It's so
ways,
funny.
Yeah.
And I mean, haha, funny. I mean, like crazy funny. Like, yeah.
But it is haha funny too. You know.
Both.
It really is. So yeah, it'll be an interesting couple years, and at the end of the day, no matter if I hate every time I see my face on the screen for everything I do going forward, which I hope isn't the case.
Right.
But if I do, I still feel very lucky and very grateful that I've had the opportunity to work largely amongst people who this is their shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this is their one of their some of them one of their first things that they're like putting it all out on the line for.
Right.
And that is cool, you know, and I wish them all the success, and I hope that it all works out.
Yeah.
Two of the films I did in this last year, you know, I think is their first feature films, you know, that they might have had some shorts that had success and they got maybe funding for a feature, and that is really exciting. It's really cool to be a part of that, you know. It's
almost like you're on their ground floor.
Yeah.
When you were on somebody else's, you were on the ground floor of somebody else's project, and it just naturally builds.
So it's exciting. We'll see. And the fact of the matter is, it's an extremely competitive world, and extremely challenging and very difficult to make a movie. It just takes so much, and when you don't have money on your side.
Yeah.
My Christian film director, he always says, I would love to see Steven Spielberg make a movie like this with my budget. You know, he always jokes around.
Right.
Because it's...
What are you going to do, blow Jesus off the cross by an alien or something like that? It doesn't have quite the same impact.
You know, and it's like they really have a lot of challenges that they have to overcome, and moments when it works out, it's just like, wow, that is just blood, sweat, tears. That is really what that is.
Well, and that's what...
I got to be a part of that.
That's what going to the movies used to be. It used to be an escape, or to feel good, or to be like, oh, this movie's cool, and like take you out of it. Now it's like people are looking for a statement every time they see a movie of this or that, and it, like, entertainment industry was to make you entertained.
I agree.
Not to be divisive. So
I agree.
But also there's a place for those to open people's eyes, and like, you know, that kind of thing.
It's a powerful medium.
It's a very, it's a very slippery slope.
I really do think movies and television
and artists, like musicians, the same thing.
And music, and just like the arts, I really think is maybe like the most powerful, inspirational medium that I could think of, you know. But sometimes you just want a funny movie.
Yeah.
With no point. You'll forget it next week.
Yeah.
So some nights, you're right. You just want to sit there, have some popcorn with a friend on a summer night, and watch a stupid movie.
Right.
You know? And I was lucky to be in one of those stupid movies that I hope someone one day takes their friend and popcorn, sits on the couch in the summer, and watches a silly, stupid movie.
Right. And because
it has its place.
It does. Right.
I miss those movies,
it back to those days of like E.T. and things like that. It's just like, that wasn't made to be a blockbuster. That was made to be a cool movie, you know?
And you walk away laughing, and then it's out of your head almost. Which is, it's entertainment.
You never know what's going to become a classic or a go-to film.
Yeah, you never know. You really never know. But
Sean, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for having me. You asked amazing
awesome
questions, and it's equally like crazy for me to like, you know, voice it out, and it's just been really special. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.